Welcome to Deal Nation. On the show today, we're joined by Ginger Crystal Faith, the CEO of Lifestyle Wealth Strategies and owner of Golden Canyon Properties. How are you, Ginger?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. I was excited about this anyway, just because of your impressive history in real estate investment. But then I found out pre-show that you live and work in my hometown, Livermore, California.
Amazing. That's very cool.
Yeah,
Very
such a small town coincidence. I don't think I've met another investor that works out of that area.
yeah. It's very specific. It's a cool little area. I live in one of the historic homes downtown, and it's just a fun. It's become so vibrant, and so cool. It's an eclectic little place. It started off as a cowboy town, and then Silicon Valley moved in, and then it blew up. And like you said, it's had a glow up over the last 20 years. It's a super cool place to be.
Yeah, so if anybody listening doesn't know it, give it a look. Livermore, California. They've got some really great wineries out there. If you're ever out in the Bay Area, go out and give it a little exploration.
Well, you know what Livermorans say? They say Napa makes auto parts, Livermore makes wine.
Oh, that's funny. I hadn't actually heard that. I was just in Napa recently as well. All right, so let's talk about some real estate. I know I'd love to talk about we love to talk about an origin story here on Deal Nation. So how did you initially gravitate towards real estate? What's kind of your come up story there?
Well, I started off by buying a six-family house back in 1994. That's how I started. But before that, what I encourage people to do, women, my niche is educating women on how to get involved in real estate investing. But I started a small business, and there's so much opportunity right now for women to start small business, even as a side hustle. And so I started a small business, and it started doing really, really well. And then I thought, wow, what do I do with all this money? I can't buy another pair of shoes. I need to do something with this money. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, next thing, just buy a six-family house, right? That's how young and reckless I was. But it worked out. It was a Victorian. It was distressed. I saw potential where others saw risk and bought it. And the first thing I did is I slapped a coat of paint on the outside. And the story is that I created a painted lady, cream, pink, and purple, because nobody told me I couldn't do that. And in a puritanical town of New England, made it the talk of the town, and people started lining up with applications that they wanted to rent from me. So that's how I got involved. Yeah.
That's interesting because I know that you are also a very successful Airbnb host. I guess we should quickly cover the fact that in your real estate career, you flipped something like 57 single family homes. You're a very successful Airbnb host. You own commercial real estate. You've really kind of run the gamut of what's possible in real estate investment.
Yeah, I have ADD clearly. Yeah.
Well, I love that. I love the story of the way you kind of added some uniqueness to that house in New England, because this was very much a precursor to Airbnb, probably a good 15 years ahead. But having that unique kind of curb appeal and that unique rentability, I mean, I think you saw very early on, probably what it takes to have people look at the pictures and look at the booking site and go, yeah, that place looks interesting.
Yeah. It's true. And it was very organic. It was way before HGTV didn't exist when I was doing it. There was no two-time girl. I missed my calling when I was a kid. I could have got on board and done all that stuff, but I just worked. I just worked, and I was thinking and oh, this would be cool. I laugh when I think what was I thinking? Nobody else had a pink, purple, and cream house, but I saw it in a book, and I'm like, this would be cool. So, and it ended up working out. So, yeah.
No, I love that. So at that point, I know you jokingly say they have ADD, but before you really kind of learn to diversify and learn to take on other kind of challenges as an entrepreneur, did you have an early niche in real estate that you, after that 6 bedroom, that you focused on?
Well, yeah, I started buying multifamily apartment complexes, because they were available, they were affordable. The numbers worked back then easier than they do today. You really got to get something distressed, and you've really got to get somebody who's a don't wanter, as they say. But they were available, and it was really exciting to start getting rent. And I moved into the penthouse of the property, a beautiful mahogany library. It was so cool. It was an old Victorian with a widow's peak and a great neighborhood. But once I got the taste of like living for free and actually getting paid, it was like, oh, I want to do this again. It was like, let me do it again. Let me do it again. And so my niche was multifamilies in the 90s. And that I was in New England all those years. My first flip was in 96. And I walked into a credit union. It was a fireman's credit union. And I said, hey, I saw that you have this house that's all, in distress, and you took it back. I'll buy it from you for $15,000. And then they said, oh, 17. I said, okay. And I took money from the pink house, took the cash out as a HELOC, grabbed that and renovated it, and then flipped that. And so it was just, just curiosity. It was a lot of curiosity, just like, oh, what will happen if I do this? What will happen if I do that? And I still have my business that's churning money. And it was a fun business. It was an exciting business in the hospitality field. And I could do it part-time. And so my niche in the 90s were definitely multifamilies. Then I moved to California. The numbers didn't work. When I moved to California, it wasn't like, I looked at them like, what? 500,000 for a townhouse? That's not going to, and you can get 1,500 for rent. Well, that doesn't work, right? So I became a mortgage broker and did that until in 2009. And I also became a real estate broker in 2005. So in 2009, when the crash happened, it was very disorienting. Obviously, it was crazy. But when I finally got my bearings and figured out what to do, I started flipping property, and I started buy and hold and flipping. Not enough. Yeah. I didn't buy enough. Like everybody says, I should have bought more, but I was buying them and flipping them and buying them and holding here and there. But the rents hadn't caught up quite to the level, so it was a little shaky. So I didn't buy enough, but I bought some to give myself a nice little baseline, and that's what I like. My big focus in talking to women about real estate is like, where can you find an opportunity and a niche in the path where real estate is growing, where you can actually make money to set yourself up. It's really, really nice to have your baseline covered, to have your bills covered by rents. It's really nice. And that started in the 90s. I'm writing a book right now about becoming a lifestyle builder using real estate, because what I've noticed that everybody talks about like building empires, like everybody I see an empire, and I'm not an empire builder. I never was. I'm a lifestyle builder. I want to be able to take the day off if I want to, take a lot of time off if I need to, and still have things covered. And so the things that I like to encourage women to do and people to do, men and women are very different in their approaches to real estate. Men want to be King Kong. A lot of times, how many doors, right? King of the hill. That's awesome. Women, if they don't have a partner, tend to be like, hey, I want to spend time with my kids, my family. I want to travel. I want to go to the spa. How can real estate help me do that so I'm not in a grind all the time? So my orientation. Yeah,
it's something we talk about on this show quite a bit, and it's I'll bring this up often, of wanting to really decide whether or not you want a lifestyle business or you want to build generational wealth. Because I've seen it happen a lot with investors where they just start building up, they get some success, they get cash flow coming in, and they think, well, now I have to turn that into more investments. I have to turn that into different business structures. I have to continue being an entrepreneur and fill this time with business and money making. And I've been fortunate enough in my life that I've taken long stretches off of work here and there. I've had the experience of knowing what it's like to just walk into a day with nothing but free time. And a lot of people, especially in the US, a lot of people don't ever have that opportunity. So when they get faced with free time suddenly, because they've got enough cash flow coming in that they can walk away from a 9 to 5, a lot of times they fill that absence, I think, with more activity, right? Because you got to fill the hours.
More work,
more
right?
work, more work instead of
or busy work,
right, instead of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, like at the beginning, like as you approach this with the women that you're working with, how do you kind of frame that opportunity from the beginning of that, finding the right balance between funds and fun?
Between funds and fun. I like fun. I like it. I like it. I'm gonna use that. That's good. Funds and fun. It's really a matter of real introspection. What do you really, really, really want? And that sometimes evolves, right? Sometimes you want one thing in one life, in one part of your life, and that evolves to another aspect of life, right? So really introspection. I'd say a lot of prayer and thinking and walking and experiencing things. The more you experience life, the more you say, oh, I love this, I hate that, right? So get involved with life, find out what it is that you really enjoy and you want, and then make that your goal, make that your target. And then also, I think that there's a element with women, a lot of women, maybe men too, of feeling worthy of that. And there's a cultural brainwashing of like work, work, work. Your value is tied to your work, and it's true, sort of, right? But not really. Your value is who you are, and your value is obviously in the marketplace. It's what you produce, but it's not necessarily trading dollars for hours. And that needs to be like reconstructed in our mind. I'm a master at re-brainwashing myself, and I'm still working on it. So I think that probably answers your question on that. It's like really experience life, get out there and do things, find out what you love, and then be introspective, and then be disciplined enough to discipline your discipline, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. So you had to have learned this somewhat through doing it. So for you, what were once you had that cash flow, what were some of the lifestyle choices or just things that you were curious about, where you chased your own curiosity? What were the things that you were interested in?
Well, mine have to do with many, many years ago, I went on a personal healing journey. That was a big thing for me. And what real estate allowed me to do is literally take 5 years basically off. I kept my business going, my little business that was like 20 hours a week, where I made full-time income, which was great. But I like squirreled away 4 days a week for about 5 years. 4 days a week, I would like disconnect, to unplug, and I would read, meditate, go to the gym, eat super healthy food, and like just be away from everybody, and like just just enjoy my life, and then decompress and unwind. And that was very powerful, to be able to take that significant time off and be away. Literally, I got a place an hour away from where I was stationed, working all my work. And I just enjoyed doing that, and I went to classes. I took a 1 month master class with certification on neurolinguistic programming, NLP. So I went away to Colorado for a month. I had time to do that. And that was, to me, that's my jam. I love that personal development type of stuff. And that for me, but other people will like travel or do other things. But that was, for me, that was like, because I'm always a grower, even if I'm not working, I love to learn and grow still. And so that was probably the most significant, to take that, 5 years off, 4 days a week, and then just have the money coming in the background. That was probably the most significant thing that I've done. Other than that, just traveling and, just being able to take. Right now, I'm going away once every quarter to meet some people that I work with through the Commercial Academy, the J. Scott Chill Commercial Academy. I take off. I'm leaving in a couple weeks to New England and to an event, so do that once a quarter and have the flexibility to do that.
Yeah, there's a couple things you said I think are important and kind of worth highlighting. One being I hear often where people that have really been under the grind for years and years and years say, "Well, I could never take that much time off. I'd get bored." No, you wouldn't. You just say that because you haven't done it, right? Like,
right. Well, you have to have something to substitute, right? Well, we find out what it is that you enjoy. If you need mental stimulation, what are you going to sit watch TV? I mean, that's ridiculous. Anybody who's watching this right now, we're not like just vegetators, right? We're doers. But if you're an adventurer, like clearly you are, right? You're an adventurer, so you'll find something to stimulate your mind and learn and grow just in a different direction.
And there is a lot of beauty in a day where you get up, you go for coffee, you do some shopping for dinner later, you read a book in a hammock, you go hang out with some friends and have just an afternoon hangout session. You have dinner at home and you go, how is it 8 o'clock at night already? I didn't do quote unquote anything, but you did, right? And those days go by really quickly, and you start to like you said, decompress when that happens.
Soul restoring days, right? Soul restoring. Yeah.
And the other thing that you said that I really like, and I think it's a hard one for people again that have been kind of under the grind to grasp, is that a lot of times the things you do for self-development are just for self. They're not for money. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's like programming classes, something like that. It's not because you want to make the career change, because you have genuine interest in that and you just want to learn it. If you want to learn guitar and you start playing, whatever Jack Johnson's songs or something on the acoustic guitar, you're not planning to be a rock star, right? You're just learning something. So
yes.
I think there's a lot of things like that where just for the joy of doing it, learning it, spending the time can be, again, like really healing, like you said.
It's so anti-Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
I'm only half joking. Yeah.
But the flip side of that to those listening, they're going, nope. I'm a hustler, or I'm an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And you've also taken that baseline amount of money, which is, I think there's been tons of studies that show, depending on where you live in the world, after a certain amount of money, it's diminishing returns, right? Like everybody finds happiness and contentment in knowing that they're safe. So once you have that amount of money that you know that you're safe, then you can start getting creative and really chasing inspiration. And you've done that in a few different entrepreneurial ways. So you want to talk about that quickly, kind of how you branched out as an entrepreneur?
Well, basically, I'm an opportunist, right? So I would look at the opportunities. What is available now? What are the opportunities available now? And how do they dovetail with my own desires and, desire to learn and my abilities and my own natural genius, right? So basically my career would span from multifamilies and one flip, to migrating over to a mortgage broker. And I worked really hard as a mortgage broker. So I'm not joking. No lifestyle there. It was just like, bam, just for a while, because that was the time, 2001 to 2000, until the crash. It was just, there was so much need for money, and, rates were going lower. There was just so much opportunity, and I had a huge client base. So that was the time to make hay. But then the market shifts. So what do I do now? All of my income drives up, so I make a flip, right? So I shift again. Now I'm flipping properties and I'm short selling REOs all of that time, because that was the time, we figure it out. And then later on, I went back into conventional real estate investing and started my Airbnb. business about 6 years ago, I think. I mean, about 6 years ago. And now I'm also a broker. So I have clients that I work with. But during all of that time, my house is paid off. I've got rentals. I got the baseline handled, because my mindset was always get the baseline handled. Like you said, safety. I would like that. It's a mindset. Like the idea of like grinding is like makes me crazy. I grind, but because I choose to, because I choose to, but my baseline has got to be handled, and the cash flow has got to come in when I, put the checks in the bank and all the bills are paid from someone else's work. I'm like, okay, I've set this up right, and so it's just really a matter of flexing. And then in the last 2 years, I've been orienting toward commercial, which has been a big challenge for me after like almost, now 30 years in residential. To learn commercial has been a big challenge, and to be with people who are like on another level from me has been exciting. Honestly, when I first started learning it, my brain checked out. It was like, oh, I just want to watch TV and eat popcorn right now. I do not want to listen to this cap rate crap. Like, what is this cap rate compression? I was like, what is this? Right. My brain got lazy, but it does that sometimes. It gets lazy when and when I started my YouTube channel, my brain got lazy. Like, what? I don't want to do this. So, you push it. And then now it's fun. Now it's like, oh, okay, I get this, and evaluating deals. Like, okay, nope, this is a bad deal. This is a good, so now it's exciting once you understand it. And so it's just that is like, I think the next frontier for me at this point. So yeah, so I guess it's opportunity. The other thing is, if you look at the timeline, the opportunities always changed. So there is opportunity right here, right now in commercial real estate, because of significant market changes over the last 5 years, starting with COVID. With the rates went way down, the values went really high, and people were buying and renovating buildings in great locations. Now the rates, it was so predictable. I don't know how these smart people missed it, but what happened was now the rates went up. Now they're not 2%, they're 7. And these people are, smart, the smartest guy in the room, usually smartest guy in the room, now owns like, 100,000 square foot apartment or office complex, at a 2% rate, which is now shifting to a 7% rate, because commercial properties you can't get a 30-year loan on a commercial property. It's just not.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What are the limitations?
Loan that I'm aware of. There's one HUD loan, and it's fairly new. One of my guys from the Commercial Academy pushed it through for apartment houses that you can now, but generally for like commercial, like retail, industrial, no, you get 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years, 3 to 5 years, because there's no government entity protecting commercial like it's protecting the single family. Right. Okay. So now these people, think about the numbers. You're 2% now, you're 7%, and you overpaid. You overpaid to begin with, because you're like, because you're in a grabby mode, right? And then King Kong mode. King Kong mode. Yeah. So that's what's going right now. And so there's lining up good opportunities, like in 2009, which was the absolute bottom. July of 2009 was the absolute bottom of the market in the residential back in the day. So now there's another opportunity in commercial right now. We're in 2025. Some people have been waiting for this for years, but it's pretty much it's time now to take advantage of that.
Yeah. So you've identified, I think, three kind of core areas to entrepreneurship. One, taking the leap and just having that entrepreneurial spirit to just get started. Mm-hmm. Two, really striking the right balance between empire building and fun, right? And then three is recognizing new market opportunities and when to make a shift and keep yourself inspired, but also kind of safe as you navigate your business over the years. So, with those kind of three things in place, I'd love to like hear specifics about obviously the why you work. You work with a lot of women entrepreneurs to help them find success, but also the how, and kind of walk through your process of working with them in those different kind of sectors.
So that's a very broad question. So let's see if we can break it down. Yeah, let's see if we can break it down. When I first started,
20 minutes.
yeah, in 1 minute, in one sentence. Yeah, let me see if I can do a soundbite, right? When I first started my first event that I ever attended, there were all men. I was the only woman in the room, and that was in the 90s. And one of the guys asked me if I was there to find a husband. So,
oh no.
Yeah, so that's like how weird it was for me to be there. Like, what are you doing here, right? So everything has changed.
Did he like time poured in from 1890? Like,
well, the 90s, there were no men. I mean, there were no women in these events, right? There were all men. He was particularly audacious, but I wonder if some other people were thinking it. But now you see more women, filter in. In the commercial space, 97% of all commercial real estate is owned by men, 3% by women. And of that 3%, 1.5% have inherited it.
Oh, wow.
So literally, there is only 1.5% of women out there who own commercial real estate that they have deliberately created and bought. So I started Lifestyle Wealth Strategies specifically to address the needs of 40 to 60-year-old women who have either they're very busy as professionals, understanding that making money is one skill set and investing money is a completely different skill set. I wish I had known that when I was younger, right? Because it's a completely different skill set. And there are women out there right? They're women, I guess men too. They're 40 to 60. They're looking at their, what they're supposed to have in the bank in order to retire comfortably, and it doesn't match up. Right. They worked hard, but inflation's happened. Now the kids, divorce, whatever's going on with their lives. And I like to say, look, I have many case studies of women just like you who made a decision. I'm going to supplement my income with real estate that's going to give me cash flow to take care of my bottom line. And I know women who've done it from nothing. They come to me and they don't know anything about real estate. And some of them have gone bigger and better than me. I'm like, whoa, look at you. But based on counsel and advice that I've given them. And other people are just like, what, if I could just get a little pressure release, I don't need to have, all my bills paid by real estate, but I'd like to get, some of them. So I'm writing a book and it's going to be available in a month and a half. It's with the editor right now. 21 ways to stop chasing hustle and let real estate fund your dream life. And so there are 21 ways. So I'll give you, since you asked this big, broad question, let's narrow it down to two very, very big. I'll give you a story of two different people in completely different situations. One of them is a school teacher. She's a school teacher. She's an art school teacher. Okay, here's one case study. An art school teacher doesn't typically make a lot of money. And she lives in Silicon Valley raising 2 kids. Now she's putting 2 kids to college. She travels all the time. How does she do it? Well, one of the ways is when she travels, she rents out her home to Airbnb. And sometimes she'll rent out to Airbnb just to get enough money to travel. And she'll sleep in her daughter's room. So she'll rent out the master bedroom. It's very creative. It's a simple, and her value is traveling. She just got back from a 3-week trip to Europe, and brought her son with her. So that's using real estate. That's being creative. She's not owning a bunch of real estate. So that's the kind of thinking. It's just about how do you creatively think to get someone else to pay for your lifestyle. So that's a very simple thing, right? Some people, that's where they fall. How can I just think a little differently and take a little risk? Obviously, she's bringing somebody into her home, right? So it's not necessarily comfortable, but that would be a baseline. Now I have another friend who decided she absolutely wanted to retire, own a farm raise organic vegetables and have fruit trees and travel. And what she did was while we consulted together, she used my attorney to help out. And basically in about 3 years, she really compressed time. She flipped a 56 unit apartment complex, a garden style complex, from garbage to gorgeous, and then took the money and left California, bought 10 acres, built a house. She walked away with multiple 7 figures, built a house, planted little fruit trees, now hand planted her own little organic gardening. Now she's starting a YouTube channel on Chinese cooking. She's an amazing cook. And she's farm to table. And she's like over there hacking up her little butternut squash and her spinach. And then she's bringing up her, and that she did with real estate. So here's 2 beautiful examples, right? They'll both be in my book. So the beautiful examples of like one person, I just want to travel, and I just want to make a few, make sure my bills are paid. And the other one's like, no, I want out of the rat race. I'm out of Silicon Valley. I want my farm. She's got a little dog. She's happy doing her own thing. So this is my thrust, basically, after experiencing this myself and then seeing other people use real estate so creatively. I love giving stories like that and inspiration because we learn from each other's stories.
Well, what I really love about both of those stories is that they're lifestyle stories, right? Mm-hmm. Every coach I know will ask the question, what kind of business do you want? But what kind of business do you want? And, what's your ideal life 2 years from now or 3 years from now are different questions, right? And the focus on that, that end goal of owning 10 acres and having a YouTube channel focused on farm to table cooking, and that is the thing that real estate funds or fuels, right? So it's that, what's the lifestyle goal at the end?
If you think that way deliberately.
Right. So one of the things, though, that you must get this a lot at the beginning, and I'm curious about this, is you were saying that wealth building and investing are very different things, right? And I also wish that I knew more about that when I was younger. But one of the tenets with, if you call up your bank and you're like, hey, I want to invest some money, one of the first questions they're going to ask is, what's your risk profile, right? And there's kind of a risk profiling that goes along with entrepreneurship, right? Of how much you really want to go all in, of how much time you can put towards this until you have your baseline built up. So how do you help women kind of navigate risk profiling in the beginning?
That's a great question. Again, it goes down to introspection, right? How old are you? What's your past risk profiling, right? If you're like, okay, I just want the money in the bank, well, that's really one real strong risk profiling, right? You and I briefly touched on the idea of how to prevent being scammed, right? So dovetailing risk profiling, there are people who literally, because of greed, they have written checks to people who are scammers. And this is happening right now. So risk profiling, you really you don't want to be. It's really a great conversation. We could do a whole entire podcast on this whole question, right? Introspection, your age, and what you want to accomplish. And then being curious, asking a lot of questions, and finding out where you need to be. And of course, they do say diversify, and I do think diversification is important. Some people say, put all your eggs in one basket and watch that basket. But somebody could squash the basket, so that's so you really, you can watch the basket and still lose. So when I say diversify. My accountant says I'm a little heavy weighted in real estate. So I'm acknowledging that. I'm like, okay, let me see how I can, find other ways. So I'm in certain types of crypto and certain AI and so I'm
Yeah.
rerouting some things to get more balance. So my idea for diversification was, how many properties can I own that'll give me cash flow? That's my idea of diversification, right? So so yeah, I think being introspective, like having people, because it's not a one size fits all. I can't tell you what your risk profile is. You've got to look at your own self. But safety. Like, I think getting counsel from people smarter than you, helping you to be safe. That's most important. And working with people, only writing checks to people who have a very wise track record, not just a good track record, but a wise track record. And so with me, like 2010 was a big crash, but then after that, everything was hopping. And we've only had one market, and that's up since 2010. So I really like to consult with people who have been around since before 2010, if they're operators. So if I'm going to write a check to someone, not necessarily that's the only criteria, but they have to be more safety focused than I am. And I need to see that and know that. So recently I bought a 30,000 square foot commercial building with some friends of mine in Sacramento. And it cash flows neutral at 40% occupancy. So it's a distressed asset. But my friends are more safety conscious than I am. They're more that the wife who's the main underwriter, she's like crazy safety, like she reads everything and makes sure everything, and I read everything when it comes to leases and what's the story, what's the problem, I know this is like it's such a big question, so I'm having a hard time winnowing it down. I'd say find people around you who are very safety conscious. Richard Branson says, protect your downside, the upside will take care of itself. And so really focusing on safety first. And whatever your risk profile is, do you want to lose it? No, nobody wants to lose it. Right. So
yeah, I'm glad. Sorry to interrupt. I'm glad that you said like safety, right? Because one of the things I've been what I've really appreciated about working in this industry and having the opportunity to talk to people like yourselves is it's reframed for me the ability to retire and retire well, even if you're getting started a bit later, right? And I think you have a plan for 3 years or so in order to get to that point. And I think that one of the things that gets misunderstood, and correct me if I'm wrong, of course, is that typically when people think retirement, they think very, very big numbers, right? Like I need $2.5 million to live off 4% and whatever, right? Whereas what you said, safety. The real question I think often is like, if I could tell you that through passive income, you were going to have anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 deposited into your bank account every month, and you could have a very, very high level of confidence that that's going to continue more or less in perpetuity, would you consider yourself wealthy? And I think most people would say yes. They wouldn't necessarily need millions of dollars. So, getting to a point of safety and reframing it, I think in that way kind of can make it seem less daunting.
Right. I think that's probably the first level before thinking of yourself, at that next level of wealthy. Just get financially secure. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's a lot of the things that you want to do, right? Like the person that you mentioned that in that first story that wants to travel. That fits within a not huge budget, right? Like buying 10 acres somewhere and starting a farm, maybe that's going to cost you some more money. Right. So it's also, I think, a question of exactly what you want out of what lifestyle means to you. I'm sure it means a lot as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So once people have kind of, the women that you're working with, once they've kind of picked their initial entrepreneurial challenge that they want to go after, how do you kind of guide them specifically through? I mean, you gave that stat of, I think, 1.5% of commercial real estate is owned by women. So right. In male dominated industries in the extreme. how do you kind of advise them and help them navigate that kind of working environment?
Again, it depends on what they want, right? We have the 21 ways, right? So what do you want? And so the guidance will depend on what their goals are. And so because I have such a huge background of like this and that and this and that, everything's going to be dependent. If they want to be an Airbnb superhost, or, and make money that way, I'll turn them on to a couple of my YouTube videos that I've done and created based on learning how to create a beautiful space on a budget, how to set up systems to automate, right? So I've got all that information easily accessible. If somebody wants to, travel and like rent out a room, that's one conversation. So really, when it comes, everything comes down to what is the goal. Now, when it comes to commercial, I am not the expert. I'm 2 years in. The people I work with in the J. Scott Shield group, they take down $1 billion a quarter in distressed commercial assets.
A quarter?
Yes, a quarter.
Wow.
So there's a group of them, like like a pot of orca whales, right? Taking down this stuff, right? And they work together. They work together to take this down. So I'm just like, okay, I'm like, a little baby orca. And then, but I have good friends who are phenomenal underwriters. So I would literally say, come with me, and we'll, and we can, we're learning together, because it's really, it's like you're playing with the big boys now when you get to that level, and people have to realize that you're going to need to get that safety we talked about. You're going to need people that you trust, and then you're going to need a lot of people, because there's so many aspects to this. There's fundraising, there's finding the deals, there's underwriting the deals, there's negotiating the deals. There's, there's many, many aspects. And so it really does take a team to be able to, take down these larger projects. So, but if somebody really wants strong cash flow, and they want to like get into financial orbit, then that to me is like the number. You got to focus on commercial real estate, but it's going to be a learning curve, and it's not going to happen overnight. And the possibility of messing it up is high, very high. So you're going to be very, very, very careful. It's a lot easier to like rent out a room, than to take down, an apartment complex or a strip center or something like that, right? There's a lot of more leases and lawyers and a lot of conversation. But if that's what somebody absolutely wants to get into financial orbit, never think about money again, if they do it well, that's the way to go.
And within these niches, are there opportunities in your community for women to network together, entrepreneurs to network together, or there are kind of regional meetups that you can recommend so that people can kind of find their peers within that space?
Yeah, we have a monthly meetup in Silicon Valley. We have it in Dublin, California. We have it at the Fieldworks. And interestingly enough, there are more women coming than there were before, which is awesome. Go on to meetup.com and start looking around. There are a lot of really good ones. If you want to do the commercial space, Beth Azor has a great YouTube channel, and she may have some groups, but they're all over the country. Word of caution, I've noticed with some of these meetups that you do have to, if you're going to invest with the leader, the lead person, they're usually looking for funding deals. That's why they create the meetup groups. Not a bad thing, but you just have to make sure that you vet them, you stress test and understand how, what you're doing, what you're getting involved with, and you're not letting your greed glands, take over. And then you look at their reputation and ask around, talk to people, and make sure that they have a solid reputation as a great operator. You only want to work with great operators who know what they're doing and that you can trust. And that's one of the things probably the most important thing I've learned over 30 years is make sure that if you invest with anybody, that they have a long track record and they put their investors' interest above their own desire for just acquisition, so.
Yeah, and when choosing a mentor, it's really important it's not always the biggest names that matter. Like you said with the commercial real estate, you said you're not the expert. But I would going in, I'd much rather learn from you than try to chase down one of those orcas that you mentioned. I don't need to learn from the orca, right? Like I want to learn from somebody who's recently gone through what I'm about to go through and can give me advice that's practical to what I'm about to go through. Because I don't need to close $1 billion a quarter. I'm just trying to pay bills, right?
Right,
And so, right. So finding
yeah.
that right mentorship, and I think another important thing I think is important that kind of speaking of risk profiling, right? Is people do worry about getting scammed. They do worry about like finding the wrong mentor, right? But in your opinion, and I'll bridge into this question, but in your opinion, how long does it take to become at least a minor level subject matter expert? Because I always look at this as like you just started a new job, and in the beginning of the
Yeah.
new job, you don't know anything, but 6 months in, you're like, yeah, I can train somebody. I know this, right? And so this is not a forever thing. This is a hurdle that you need to get past until you know what you're doing, and then after that, like you don't need it as much,
Yeah. I think it depends on the level, right? You need a higher level of skill for a more sophisticated deal. Probably taking down 100,000 square foot office complex in Midtown Chicago is going to take a little more skill level than it would be to buy a 8,000 square foot shopping center, near you in an area that you already know well, and the owner and you've been going there for 20 years or something like that. You kind of are familiar with it, right? So I like the 6 month thing. They say, the 10,000 hours, you need 10,000 hours to be good at anything, but you can do 10,000 hours and be crappy at something. So it just depends. Like I was a day trader for a while. I did the 10,000 hours and I still wasn't any good. But in real estate, it's like I still was like, I got to go back to real estate. So I did that for a little, bit. So yeah, I don't know the 10,000 hours, but I think you'll know if you become competent. You start speaking the language. You start seeing, oh no, this is not a good deal. This is not safe. You start like knowing the terrain. I had a really great experience recently where I found a really great deal, and then I found out that one of my friends, who's really good at finding good deals, has been already in conversation with that strip center, and I was like, oh, they've been talking to them for about 1.5 years trying to get the numbers down. And so when I realized that I keyed in on this is a good deal, and somebody who's already very successful matched what I said, like, oh yeah, we've been talking to that guy. That could be a good deal if they bring the numbers down. I'm like, I knew I was on the right track, right? And that wouldn't have happened just 1.5 years ago. Like, okay, I found a good deal that, you've already been, so you'll start knowing, you'll start comprehending the language.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's not as scary as it sounds going in, right? Like you're gonna learn pretty quickly. Your confidence is gonna go up quite quickly. So it's that initial step. You brought something up pre-show, and it's an interesting question. So I'd like to kind of throw it back to you. Kind of reverse scope on this. Women navigating a male-dominated industry is one thing. But for that, the male side of the perspective, what are some ways that they can improve the way that they're working with women in the field, help support women entrepreneurs, and create a better kind of shared experience for everyone?
I say, a lot of good men like to help women, which is cool. And I say just be helpful when in learning, and kind of treating them like a sister, because there are situations where, the tension comes in, the male female tension, so that can interfere with the job a lot. That can just become, it can be very counterproductive. And it was, when I was younger, less confident, it was a stumbling block. So I'd say if you can do that, if you can, treat them like a sister, treat them with respect, but also be helpful, you can garner their trust, and women can be great allies and really, really contribute a lot, especially if you're flipping properties. Women can be great, because I can always tell when a flip had no women involved. They look terrible inside. Like, this was flipped by a guy. Look at this. It looks terrible. It has no design sense. So women,
Right.
women can have a great, be great assets in a lot of ways. And we're collaborators. Women are collaborators.
Absolutely. So, it's never, I think, it's an old axiom, right? Like, it's never too late to get started. And one of the things as I mentioned before, I learned through working in this industry is that you can really achieve success quite quickly. 40, after 50, even, like, it's never too late to get started. So I realize that, women of all ages as entrepreneurs can come and work with you and learn from you. But specifically to people who may be going into this thinking, I don't know, is it too late? Should I just stick with my 9 to 5 and ride this out? What advice would you give them, and how can they get started working with you?
I say get rid of the idea it's too late, because if you're alive, it's not too late, right? Hopefully you have 5 years. Hopefully you have 5 years in your life. So get started now and start educating yourself. It's not going to happen, just by itself. You have your 9 to 5, fine. What are you doing after 5? Are you watching TV? Are you going out for drinks with your friends? Or are you working watching podcasts, learning, reading books, even some of the classic books you can read on these things. So go to the real estate networking groups, start talking to people. What are other people doing? You never know when you can get an idea based on your geography that can and then stay focused on what it is that you want. I'm a huge believer. I absolutely know that your subconscious mind, that reticular activator system in your brain, is there to help you to navigate toward what you want. And so train your mind what it is that you're looking for. I want passive income, 1,000, 2,000, I want whatever it is. Train exactly, and then you just focus and focus and focus. You continue to do that, and then get out there, see what other people are doing around you, and you will make it happen. You just have to be very patient and very focused, and you have to educate yourself.
And in doing so, you're going to free up a bunch of time, right? To chase the lifestyle that you want.
Well, ultimately, that's the goal, right? Yeah. You work hard in the beginning. So, like Jim Rohn says, you can either go to the beach or you can work hard now so you can own the beach.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to put in the show notes below, we're going to put, links to your website, or websites, plural, any books that you want to recommend. So let's just do kind of a recap of the URLs that people can go to connect with you. And then anything else you want to give. I don't think your book has a link yet. We'll update the description once it's available. Okay. But yeah, any websites and or reading material you want to recommend for people, so we can populate that in the notes below.
Yeah, www.lifestylewealthstrategies.com, and start with that. And my book will be 21 Ways to Stop Chasing Hustle and Let Real Estate Fund Your Dream Life. So, yeah.
Excited
to
Other
than that, you can find me all over social media, Ginger Crystal Faith. I'm all over social media, so easy to find.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to reading the book myself. And awesome. Yeah, thanks for everything that you're doing to help entrepreneurs succeed.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure.